First off, I just want to say I know it is very, very, very late. I don't know if this camera is actually centered. I just came in from doing some Uber Eats and I decided to come on here because I listened to an amazing podcast that I've been listening to for the past 2 nights that I've been doing Uber Eats. It's really like a cool time for me to connect and just kind of be in mental space and not really process what's going on outside in the world and look more internal. But I wanted to come here to give some information because I am learning that as I am doing my studies, it's really important to share that information with others because I feel like a lot of us are very busy and some of us don't necessarily always have the time to really do our own version of whatever studies are for us. And so I'm learning more and more that my journey of like going through loving art to going into, just understanding spirituality and astrology and really the grander subject of cosmology has really brought me into so many understandings of different cultures. And I'm actually really grabbing onto a lot of Buddhist concepts and a lot of Hindu concepts because it just very much so aligns with my particular path of what I'm trying to learn and connect to. And so I've been listening to a podcast that's actually, and let me tell you why I actually got connected to this podcast. So lately, I've just had a lot of stuff that has happened in the past couple of months. A lot of the feelings of limitation are starting to lift up, which is amazing. And I've noticed that as they've started to lift up, I am bringing so much more beauty into my world. But the main thing is that while those limitations were existing in my world or in my field and I was allowing them to take over that area of my space, I did feel as though I needed something that I can grab onto that would clear a lot of space and opportunity for me to receive information. And so what ended up happening was that I actually was able to get a lot of solitude because as the Virgo that I am, Virgo in Western astrology and considered a Leo, but with the next chakra of Leo and Virgo, like that crossover period in Western astrology, I definitely am really, really into like the creative side, but unfortunately I am like super workaholic and like very perfectionisty of the Virgo side because I definitely identified with the Virgo nature on a heavy level, and then I'm also considered to be a Virgo moon in Western, so either way I have that. But the key thing is that the one thing about me is that I'm always looking for a way to kind of like hermit myself when I'm not necessarily connecting to the areas of myself that can give. And so I've made a previous video about this before of where I talked about accepting the process and understanding the process and realizing that you have to process the actual process. Other than that, you're just going to be working. And so what I ended up having as an issue of overworking is back pains. And so my back pains actually started to connect more so to where my sacral chakra actually sits. And once that happened, I kind of wanted to discover other natural holistic ways of curing it rather than always reaching for, medication in the sense of like Advil or Motrin or anything like that. I'm really trying to dive into other areas of Ayurvedic medicine as well as just understanding how I can do different exercises to connect, to clear up energy in a more internal way rather than focusing on external. And so as I was, trying to search that information, I learned that I didn't know as much as I really thought that I knew about it. I've had an introduction of understanding what chakras actually are and how they are more so like an energy field or wheel in certain areas of the system. But I felt like it was necessary for me to more so dive a little bit more deep into that world because I've gotten so stuck on the different versions of astrology that ultimately I'm actually becoming more fixed into that world. And I feel like I had more real estate or more open, I should say, for purchasing more real estate of information elsewhere. And so adding that into my portfolio was really important to me because it also helps me understand how to offer that service of explanation to clients in the future that, you know, are connecting with that. It's just adding another level or character element into explaining the astrology and explaining this world of occult sciences and understanding the elements of how it all basically runs together very, very aligned and very parallel. And so I actually picked up and I keep looking to the side because I want to make sure I do not butcher her name, but I was able to go and check out the podcast element, and the podcast element of Apple has so many different channels that you can tune into. And so the tuning into that I decided to check out was a channel called Understanding the Chakras, and it's with Asha Nayaswami, and I hope I did not butcher her name. She actually is somebody that has been following the teachings of Swami Kriyananda and, okay, don't come for me if I don't say this right, but Paramhansa Yogananda. So hopefully I said that correctly. But she has been following their teachings, and so they've gotten into more of a practicalized way of explaining chakras. Would I tell you that this has been one of the most amazing series that are so down to earth, direct, and informative in a way that doesn't, I feel like it's not so vocabulary heavy for people that are not necessarily looking for the PhD version of things. They're really just looking for an understanding and something that anybody can connect to. And so it is something that I had to continuously rewind, replay, because again, you know, I'm doing this while I'm listening to this while I'm doing Uber Eats, and a lot of the information that she gave is so powerful that sometimes, especially somebody like myself who has ADHD, where I'm like trying to process the information and make sure it really stays and I'm not distracted by something else that's going on or whatever have you. I really like sit with the information. I've had to continuously go back and re-listen, go back, pause, really process what she's saying, put an understanding analogy to it, and then proceed with the information. And one of the things that stuck out to me that she said that really made me want to hop up on here and make a video is she said that you really are only living in two different ways with this particular energy. And again, I hope I'm not butchering exactly what she's saying, but I'm going to give my take on it. You're basically when you make or process information, when information comes into self, you can go one or two ways. You can go in the way where you feel united and unified with the greater all of energy that's, you know, all of the energies connected. So we're just like one small drop in the ocean and everything is connected to a greater understanding and fluidness in the sense of water vibration that can be morphed into ice form. It could be morphed into steam. It can be, you know, morphed into pure liquid, whatever have you, and solid as well. And so we're just one drop in that element that's all connected to everything that's inside of this vision, right? Down to the fact that like my dog is on the floor eating a bone and you could probably hear him in the background, to, you know, the light that sits in my room or to my bookcase. And all of these things are all vibrating off of energy, which we are all a part of. So you could make that decision when you receive information and understand that that decision is going to be vibrating off of unified energy, or you can go down the channel of separation, which is basically you feeling as though you're separated from things. And so she gave the example of when a car is coming towards you and you're driving and this car is now coming towards you. Well, there's people that would automatically respond in a more separate way of, okay, I'm not unified. This car cannot obviously smack into me and now I'm unified into energy and I'm okay. It's now I'm separated. I feel like this car coming towards me is a threat to my nature. And so I am now separated from the concept of the unified energy. Or there's also unified energy where, one might just think that the car will come closer and they will just feel like there's no pain or anything, and that, it's unified with the world. Now, this is obviously a very violent way of explaining this theory, but it gives more of an understanding on two different choices, in the sense of understanding that we are all connected and that there is no end and no beginning. It's really a sense of just the connectivity. And then there's also the decision making that ultimately comes into form of making decisions based off of protecting pure self. And so, that being said, maybe this will be more of an understanding, but she made a point that she was saying we have really two choices. And I kind of made a video about this a couple years ago, which has to do with you can only live in either love or fear, because that's the only two choices that you really have. And so what she's saying is that the energy that we receive from the earth is energy that we could either connect to and understand that it's unified energy, or we can choose to see that energy into limitations and then subject ourselves to the fears and the insecurities and, the concept of time and space and all the things that are defined in earthly nature, or we can see it as existence in general. And so she made a point, and I went down this whole lane of explanation. So again, I hope I don't butcher what she was saying, but she made a point where you could basically make a decision, and your decision could actually lead you to a cul-de-sac. And when she said that, it really sparked an understanding of what addiction is. And so the reason why I tied the two together naturally when she said this is because lots of times we make decisions and we think to ourselves, oh, I'm making this out of love, which we deeply know that we're not doing it. It's more of in the form of doing something to self-soothe in the moment, but we can self-soothe in a way that actually leads us to a cul-de-sac that just self-soothes in a local area. And ultimately, it's only for a brief moment before those limitations come back into play. And so you have to ask yourself one or two things, because she said, okay, now it's coming back to me. She said that you're either making decisions that are going to define and enhance your ultimate happiness, or they're going to, define and alter your ultimate happiness and lift your ultimate happiness, and then basically eliminate suffering, or you're doing the opposite, which is just purely living in limitation. And it made me ask myself, like, it's such an absolute way of looking at something, but I'm like, I feel like if we simplified it to that pure fact, it would make us be more intentional in our decision making, because then every time something happens, if you ask yourself, well, this is basically a form of energy, and I am of energy. And so I have the ability to transform this because I am of that same thing that I'm trying to transform. And so I can decide in that very nature, am I going to choose to take on this energy, this new energy, and adopt it into my space because it's actually enhancing my happiness, because it's actually, starting to eliminate my suffering? Or am I doing this because I'm trying to adopt something for the moment that will cure, or more so set the tone as if it's curing, which is basically just band-aiding this idea for me that ultimately is only going to lead to a short-term version of healing, and so I feel like this is very important information, because if we are constantly vibrating off of loving energy, off of energy that provides the practice of trying to eliminate suffering, and more so focusing on groundedness, and more so focusing on grounding that doesn't just reside in the field of finances and bringing in money, but the opposite axis, which is Scorpio axis of the Taurus axis of providing and bringing in money, the Scorpio axis is more for spiritual wealth. If we could connect into the enhancement of spiritual wealth, the enhancement of taking that energy that is given in, and we provide it with the same passions of fire that is going to be of heat, of light, and of energy, but more so push it in the direction of what feeds us love, what feeds us an enhancement of happiness, what feeds us the elimination, really, or it starts to break down the excessiveness of suffering, we open more opportunity to share that love and to join hands with thy neighbor to be able to do the same. And I honestly feel like we're all in our own ways trying to understand what our purpose is here. But for many of us that are on a journey of trying to more so connect on a spiritual level and really understand the spiritual connection of what this life really means, for us, it's really about lifting the vibration of earth in this experience to more enhancement of love, more enhancement of happiness, and the elimination of suffering. So I just wanted to come on here and share that with you. It's not going to be the most, I would say, smooth way of presenting this information. I know sometimes when I come on here, I'm very quick to allow my Mercurian energy just to spit things that I know, spit facts, spit things, but I just received this information and it's very sensitive to me because it made me realize a lot in my nature, knowing that I have a path, knowing that deep down there's a desire for me to connect on a level that is defined by moksha, which is basically the internal union with God. For me, it's so powerful to understand how easy it is to be distracted from that if I allow those types of concepts to come into my field. And so because although we are all here trying to understand what this life means for each individual versions of ourselves, a lot of times a person that's seeking, purity and understand what love is, purity and understanding what this entire experience is supposed to mean towards a greater input in your Akashic records, it's really easy sometimes for you to have that type of love where you end up adopting someone else's shit, right? Like you end up adopting someone else's stuff and they're not looking to be healed. They're not looking to do the work. And they see that you're on this path and they feel this vibrational energy and it feels so addicting. That's that feeling that we just talked about. It feels like, okay, it feels good. I want to have this because it's going to provide a temporary band-aid. And because they're really not concerned about the long term, they're more so concerned about the shortcut elements, and they're okay with the idea of just stopping at the cul-de-sac, and they hop onto your energy and they dress it up as if, I'm down to do the work until the work actually presents itself where it's like, okay, now it's time to do it. And then they run away for the hills. Well, just know that if you're on that journey specifically where you're trying to channel down that path of understanding and enhancement of happiness and elimination of suffering, you have to understand that sometimes that requires for you to love from afar. That requires for you to, say, I understand, I feel you. I know that we all carry the same style of energy and we all have those elements that's all connected. But in this particular life, I have a goal, I have a purpose, and I feel as though as much as you're enjoying that feeling, I have to protect it in order to be able to provide the enhancement of happiness and the elimination of that suffering so I can continue about my journey and my teaching and my learning, and as above so below, to one day be not only the student but the teacher, and still the teacher yet still the student. And so know that when you carry this energy, and some people might hate that I'm saying this, but it's such a truthful thing, this energy flows within your body. So every time you connect to somebody on a level that's a physical level, and you're exchanging energy, or even eating certain kind of foods, and you're purchasing foods from certain people that are putting their energy into that plate of cooking, or think about how quick it is for us to spend a small amount of money to get a small plate of food, or a large plate of food that might not necessarily be so large in nutritional value, because it's worth such a small amount for the extent of excessiveness that can, that's where the hormonal stuff comes from, like hormones being put into food. Or, I just watched a video earlier talking about how some fast food restaurants sell burgers for 1 cent for a week special, or anything like that. The more that you exploit energy into larger quantities without the nutritional value, the more diluted it is. And so even down to how you connect on a mental level with certain people, or you spend a lot of time working in a specific area, even though it's bringing you financial gain, there's still that ask of, are you only providing financially in a physical way and believing in only physical security? Because there could be excessiveness that will ultimately only feed that world of fear. Because now you don't feel like your security is within. You don't feel that your security is residing in self, and that your connectivity to the universe, to God, to other neighbors that are vibrating on similar levels, and even neighbors that are not quite there yet, but they're willing to be in that in the future, because in the present they are already working on that future. Another video. And just a caveat of that, so that's understood. We only have the present moment, and so we're now living in the future now, based off of the seed that we put in now. And yet, going back to what I was saying, if you're only focused on the physical elements, and you're only focused on believing in the physical things, and you allow yourself towards limitation, and you allow yourself to break away from the truth and understanding that everything resides within self, this takes away the opportunity for you to make decisions that enhance happiness and eliminate suffering. And that's basically what I'm learning. So I know that this went down a whole path of information, and I know it's late. It's 10:43 right now on the East Coast. I'm sorry, East Coast. Oh my God, how dare I? It's 10:43 right now. And it's not even considered Mountain Standard Time, I found out the other day. So in Arizona's time, I don't even know. It could be UTC. No, that's not it either. I'm not really sure. I'm now living on the understanding that time is of an illusion. And so I only follow time when I have to be somewhere on time. And that's it. But I hope that makes sense for you. I hope that you can process this. I have 2 more classes to go as far as listening to this information. And I'm so excited to listen to it. I'm going to be on a plane, on Thursday. And so I'm hoping that if I don't finish the class by that time, that I can, take a listen. I definitely would suggest it. It is about 4 hours, because it's an hour each class, but it's so heavy, and the information is just so thorough. And for, the people that are more practical than idealistic, you would love it. It's information that really does touch on things that are of necessity, of understanding just how to process information, manifest, and ultimately get you to the goal of getting the things and gaining the things that you need in order to thrive and continue to keep pushing towards whatever makes you happy and eliminates your suffering. But yeah, I just wanted to come and share this. I feel like information that is, gatekeeping is just information that really doesn't help, because you just knowing information and not sharing it is not helping someone else in need that can process that information, or even you share the information with someone and then, they bounce it back to you. I just had that conversation earlier with a friend of mine, and we just bounced back information, and it was beautiful, you know? And I was so happy to connect with her because we hadn't spoken in a while. Shout out to Diamond. But the ability to like connect and bounce off of information and understanding, you know, how energy moves, it really kind of helped set up an appetizer to the meal that I received tonight from this wonderful episode. So thank you for listening. Shout out to Asha Nayaswami. I'm probably going to tag you, and I'm sorry again if like I say this information incorrectly as far as how it was presented, but it's just a perception version, and I'm so looking forward to more information that's collected that I can process, so that way I can go towards enhancing my happiness and eliminating suffering. All right, friends, it was so nice talking to you. I'm going to go to sleep now. Obviously, I've got my like hat here that my mom has made fun of me for because it was definitely 106 degrees today in Arizona, but it's fine because I need to wash my hair. Okay. Bye, guys. Have a good night. How do you turn this thing off?